Y'all, I'm Amber and welcome to my channel. I'm going to be talking about my experience with a CGM. Oh, this little thing right there. I just finished my month-long experiment and I just kind of wanted to check out and see what was going on with my typical diet, and I wanted to experiment with a few things that I was kind of curious about. So I was lucky enough to get one. And by the way, what a CGM is a continuous glucose monitor. And it measures your interstitial fluid, not your blood, and it tests for glucose in there. Okay, and I used a company, Nutrisense, you can see that right there. And I will add a video right after this introduction of me putting one on. I will tell you, it was painless, easy. The only part that got me was the bandage that goes around it. When I took off the first monitor, it was really stuck on my skin. And so it took some of my skin. That was the worst part about the whole entire thing. I mean, other than that, this was super easy, painless. And I'm just going to tell you right now, it was completely worth it. So if you're considering it, I really like these people. And the other thing that's really cool about this is you get a dietitian assigned to you. And what's even better is they have knowledge for those of us who are low carb, keto, and carnivore. So it's nice to be able to talk to somebody and them not go, you don't have carbs, whatever. No, they know what they're talking about, and they can give you some suggestions if you're wanting to try certain things or why you had certain readings. I had a great dietitian. Her name is Catherine. I loved her. She was there for me whenever I had any questions, and she analyzed all my data for me because it was a little confusing to me because I didn't quite understand everything. And so she kind of broke it down for me and what I should be looking for, etc. And you have an app on your phone, and you just take your phone and you just go boom like that, and it pulls up your reading. Now, sometimes it took me multiple times. I don't know. I was challenged sometimes that it took me like 3 times, but generally speaking, it's, pretty cool. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it's probably too bright, but rats. It's too bright. You can't see. But that's kind of what the app looks like. Sorry about that. I'll try to put a picture of this up in the video so you can see it better. But anyway, you log your food into the app. And like I said, you just tap it, and it'll pull up all the data. And then it puts it in graphs and like you can see the peaks and the drops. And it's very, very interesting to see how your blood glucose changes through the day. And there's a few things. First, I guess I'll talk about some of the information I learned that I thought was interesting. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. So here we go. One thing that disturbed me, for me, because when I was keto, my blood glucose was pretty dang low. I mean, I felt good at 48 to 68. That's where I liked it. It felt good to be, and that's where I was on keto. But after being carnivore for 2 years, my blood glucose had the baseline has boom like this. However, from this point right here, it barely moves. It's very consistent. And from what I understand, that's not uncommon in somebody who's been low carb for a long time, keto, carnivore, whatever, that this can happen. But I'm still researching, trying to figure out if that's really an issue or not. Okay, so that was kind of surprising to me that my blood glucose at baseline was consistently higher than it was when I was first keto. And I was keto for 2 years prior. Okay. And the interesting thing is, when I did have an occasional dip, and I had this happen to me twice, that where it dropped pretty quickly, and I was below, whenever I would get below 80, I got dizzy and a little bit kind of nauseous. It was a weird feeling. I guess kind of like the hypoglycemic feeling. I'm not really sure what it was, but I didn't feel good at anything below 80. I did not feel good. So I don't know exactly what that means. I'll be doing some more research on that, but I'm just going to say, generally speaking, I feel pretty fabulous, so I'm not overly worried about that. And my insulin response was excellent. So even when I did experiment with certain things, it was all within lower than what the average would be. So, according to my dietitian, my insulin is working pretty darn good. So that's a good sign. So I think, I'm okay with this, but I'm still going to do some research just to be sure. Okay. And I will tell you, for me, honey is a big old no. Big old no. It was the one experiment that I did that jacked the crap out of my blood glucose. It actually went up above the 140, which is kind of the line they want you to stay under. It's kind of the average line. It can move a little bit, but generally speaking, 140 is where you want to stay below. Well, mine, the only food I tested that went, but it came back down in a decent time, so it's good. But because of that drop, that's when I was extremely nauseous, very dizzy, and it was not a pleasant experience. And not to mention, even though I used to love honey, it was very difficult to eat the 1 tablespoon. It was very difficult. And yes, I did eat this in enough time after eating and before eating another. So it was isolated. And yes, it was raw. And yes, it was local. But for me, honey is a no. It's just a no. I mean, other people can do it and be just fine. Yay, go for it. I used to eat it every day. Phew, I can just imagine what it did to me then. Anyway, honey is a no. And the biggest takeaway is that my blood glucose, in fact, was very steady. I mean, it barely moved. The standard deviation was 11, and that's like nothing. And so what I normally eat, my burgers, my filet, those kind of things, are very steady. Hardly any, up and down like that. It was very, very small. And one thing that I'm kind of excited about is that I am consistently in ketosis, not high ketosis, but from about a 0.5 to a 2.1, and my average is about a 1.1. And I'm pretty darn happy with that, especially after hearing for so long when I was keto, don't you be eating too much protein because you're going to get kicked out of ketosis because, steak to cake and all that. Well, yeah, I eat plenty of protein, and I'll break down my ratios here in just a minute because I honestly had no clue that, yeah, I'm in ketosis. So whatever protein I'm getting, it's not too much. And I'll guarantee I eat a lot more protein than the average person does. And I'm still in ketosis. So there you go. Pretty happy about that. And my dietitian did say, who works with me, did say that my insulin response is really good. So I'm very excited about that. I found that when I exercised, and I don't do the hard exercising, I'm working on it, y'all, just don't even at me. But I was walking and, trying to do a fast walk. I take my granddaughter out for a walk, and we go to the park and we swing and we do stuff like that. So it was activity more so than exercise, I guess. But I found that it actually lowered my blood glucose. And from what I understand, when you do intense exercise, it can jack your glucose up. I think that's kind of a common thing. But what I did, the activity, it actually lowered my glucose. And what caused the other major drop besides the honey, the peak and the drop, what caused a big peak and then a big drop was a hot bath. One morning, after dancing, my calves were cramping, and so I thought, I'm going to read a book and just take a nice long hot bath with some Epsom salt, right? And so I'm in this hot bath and all, and then I get out of the bath and I'm kind of woozy. I'm kind of like feeling like I did with the honey, a little bit dizzy and all that. And I scanned my CGM, and sure enough, my blood glucose had gone shunk way low, like really low. And so I thought that was interesting. And the other two things that can cause my blood glucose, well, one thing that caused my blood glucose to go down also was alcohol. Because I admit on weekends I will have a couple of drinks. and non-sugar drinks. Don't, it's pretty much just either tequila or vodka, but it caused my blood glucose to drop and stay low all night long. And then the next morning, I had some serious ketones. So I don't know the whole mechanism with all that, but I will say that alcohol did lower my glucose. And also there were 1 or 2 nights where I had no choice just because of my schedule. I ended up eating late. And that caused my blood glucose to rise and stay a little higher through the night. So it does matter when you eat, or at least it did for me. So I definitely am going to try to make a point of eating early, which I try to do, but sometimes it's just hard when you're busy and you're trying to do everything. And I keep my grandbaby during the day, so I do most of my stuff at night, and then I get busy and whatever. Anyway, I'm going to work on that even more. Okay, so let's get to some of the experiments that I did. First one I did was black coffee because I was just curious. I'm not like a huge coffee person, but I have been drinking coffee. It's just kind of this comfort thing. I admit it. It's, I know, but come on, give me something. But anyway, I've heard a lot about how some people, their blood glucose can spike with coffee, specifically if it's the typical kind you just buy in a store, just, grocery store. And that's what I did. I used that, and I drank it black, which, oh, good God, that is awful. I guess I'm really not a coffee person because that was nasty. And people keep saying, oh, it's because you don't have the good quality. Okay, maybe, but why force myself to like coffee any more than I already do? So no, that barely moved for me. It was like five points or whatever you want to call it. It was very, very slight. So it's all good. So coffee was no problem. Then I'm going to go in order of the least effect it had on my blood glucose to the most. The next thing I tried was Lily's dark chocolate, the dark chocolate bar. I was just kind of curious because I used to eat that a lot. And I physically couldn't even eat a serving of it. So I only had half a serving of it, but it had basically no effect on my blood glucose. It just barely rose, just a little bit more than the coffee. I mean, it was nothing. And then I tried the chocolate torte from one of my now favorite restaurants, Jack Allen. It was my favorite dessert like ever, I think, besides maybe the chocolate lava cake that was on Carnival Cruise. But it has no, it's crustless. So basically it's pretty much cream, yes, sugar, and heavy whipping cream and chocolate, pretty much really. And I was just curious. So I had that, and believe it or not, it didn't move that much. It moved 17. There was 17, from my low to my high. That's really nothing. And the area under the curve was only a 13, which that's nothing. So I was actually quite surprised by that. But it has no grains in it, but it did have sugar, but not very much. It's a very bittersweet chocolate, so there's not a lot of sugar. Maybe that was it. I don't know. Or maybe all the heavy cream, the fat in it. I don't know. But it barely moved it. Okay, let's talk about the banana. The banana. Yes, I did. And I had a small banana, and that used to be something I ate every single day, but I haven't had it in 4 years. This is the first banana in 4 years. And I had a small one, and it just didn't make me happy like it used to. I used to love bananas, and this was a good one. It was right to the right where I liked it. But it just didn't do anything for me. And it was almost like a chore eating it all, but I wanted to eat a whole small banana so I could get a good idea. Anyway, that had the third highest peak of the experiments. It wasn't horrible. It was kind of like at the lower half of the top, if you will. It was a 40-point change, and the area under the curve was 33. So, I mean, not awful, but, not good. Then I tried a baked potato, but I had it after eating my filet. So I ate a filet like I normally do, and I tested that, and the filet doesn't move much. And then I ate the potato. It was just plain. I didn't eat the outside. I just ate the inside, and I couldn't eat it all. I wasn't in the mood for that or something. And I just couldn't eat the potatoes so that much. And I didn't have butter or anything else on it. and that moved about like 38 points, not terrible, and 32 under the curve. Not terrible. I mean, not great, but not terrible. Something maybe if I really wanted, to have every now and then would be perfectly fine. Okay, then we get to honey. That was by far the biggest spike and the biggest effect I felt. I could actually feel it. And it was not pleasant. It was just not pleasant. So yeah, for me, honey, no. It had just huge. It was 60 difference. That was the biggest difference I had with anything. And the area under the curve was 43. So I won't be doing that. Anyway. Okay, so my takeaway is that I am feeling pretty darn good that my diet is where it needs to be for me. And that makes me pretty happy because I've been dealing with a few issues. One of them is weight gain without changing anything else, without changing activity, without changing my food. So that was a little concerning. And so you always have this thing in the back of your head that's like, ooh, is my diet really good for me? Well, I'm totally convinced now that diet is ruled out. It is ruled out. And I've ruled out some other things. I had some hormone testing done. That's ruled out. And I pretty well have figured out what the issue is. I just don't know what to do about it yet. It's called stress. It's called cortisol. So, but anyway, my CGM experiment was pretty awesome, and I would like to do it again, but I'm going to take a break for a while and kind of tweak some things in my diet, and then maybe try it again for 2 weeks. So y'all stay tuned, and I will do a video of how you put on the CGM at the end of this one probably. So hey, while you're here, subscribe to my channel. You know you want to. Anyway, well, y'all have a wonderful day and give the CGM a try. NutriSense was awesome to deal with. I had 0 issues with them. I loved my dietitian. And guess what? I'm going to have one of the dietitians from NutriSense come on my podcast. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to ask her more questions about area under the curve and the delta and all these, specific terms that I didn't get a whole lot into. So anyway, stay tuned. Thanks y'all for watching. Bye.
Time to put on my second sensor for NutriSense, my CGM, continuous glucose monitor. So it's pretty simple. And last time I had like absolutely 0 sensation when it went in. It comes with the applicator right here and the sensor right here. And then you firmly press down, and then when you take it out, boom, there it is. And you want to put it kind of like on the fatty part of the back of your arm. Okay, so here we go. So you line it up right about there, and you firmly press down. Boom, there it is.